Hello students, now we are going to start the last paper of this BSc Mathematics course. It is the topology. This is the last paper of BSc semester 6th Mathematics and title of the paper is the topology. We'll begin with the unit number first. Unit first of this paper comprises of 9 articles. Out of those 9 articles, 7 articles are from the chapter number 1 and 8th and 9th number article is covered from the chapter number 2nd. So we will begin with the first article. The first article of this paper is about the fundamental concepts. Most of these fundamental concepts we have already studied many times earlier. Right from the 6th to 7th standard, we have studied the set, then relations on set, some operations on set, and so on. So some of those concepts we are going to revisit. These concepts you have studied in 11th and 12th standard, as well as I have revised all these concepts in the BSc first year as well as in the second year. So now we'll begin with some fundamental concepts which we are going to use in this topology paper. As I have told many times that as the author changes, then his language of explanation of things changes. Also, as the author changes, to some extent notations are also changed. So therefore, even though this fundamental concepts paper in this one article is of the very preliminary level, therefore even though it is of importance, as the notations are little bit different as we have studied earlier. So let us begin with the first one, set. Many times we have studied the set. How the set can be defined? So see here, sets. We'll begin with the first one, set. How the set can be defined, that we are very well aware of. Set is nothing but a well-defined collection of objects. A well-defined collection of objects. A well-defined collection of objects. Okay, set can be defined as a set is nothing but it is a well-defined collection of objects. Now in this one, what is meant by the well-defined? That we know by the word well-defined we mean if some collection is given to us and some elements are given to us, then we should be in a position to decide whether that objects or the elements belongs to that set or not, whether they are members of the set or not. So if we are able to do this, then we can say that such a collection is well defined, and such collection which is well defined is only called as a set. Okay, so then obviously we know that the elements which forms the objects which forms a set are called the elements or members of the set. Okay, so next one is the elements. Elements are also called as a members, are all members of a set. Elements are members of a set. How it can be defined? Objects which forms a set. Objects which forms a set are known as the elements or members of a set. Okay, so this is the definition of elements or members of a set. Next one, we know that the sets are generally denoted by, okay, sets are generally denoted by capital case letters such as A, B, C, P, S, and so on. Okay, sets we are generally going to denote by the notations capital case Latin letters such as A, B, C, P, S, and so on. Whereas we know that the elements or the objects or the members of the set are denoted by elements. Elements or members of a set are denoted by small case Latin letters such as A, B, C, D, P, Q, R, and so on. Okay, so likewise elements or members of a set are denoted. Next one is the membership symbol. Next one is the membership symbol. Okay, so we know that if membership symbol, membership, okay, we know that if A is an element of the set A, then we denote it as A belongs to the set A. If B is an element of the set A, then we write it as B belongs to A, and so on. Okay, if A is an element in the set A or member of the set A, then we write it as A belongs to A. If B is an element or member of a set, we write it as B belongs to A. If A is not an element of the set A, then we denote it as A does not belongs to A. A does not belongs to A. Similarly, if X is not an element of the set B, then we write it as X does not belongs to B. Likewise, we use this membership symbol. Now, if A and B are the different elements, then we write it as A is not equal to B. Okay, if A and B are the different elements, then we write it as A is not equal to B. Similarly, if A and B are the different sets, then we write it as A is not equal to B. Likewise, we write not equal to if they are different elements or different sets. Next one. Next we'll define the subset. As all these concepts we are studied many times, so we are dealing with this in somewhat fast. Okay, subset. If X belongs to A implies X belongs to B, then we say that A is a subset of B. A is a subset of B, and we write this as this in symbols. The same thing, okay, the same thing can be written in symbols. We write this in symbols. How it can be written in symbols? We write this in symbols as A is a subset of B. We write this in symbols as A is a subset of B. Okay, if X belongs to A implies X belongs to B. This means that if every element of set A is also an element of set B, then we say that A is a subset of B, and we write in symbols this one as A subset of B. Okay, so this one. Next one. Now it is clear that if A is a subset of B and B is a subset of A, then we have A equal to B. Okay, so equality of sets. Equality can be defined here. Equality. Okay, it is clear that if A is a subset of B and B is a subset of A, okay, then means this implies that A and B are one and the same sets, means they are equal sets, means A equal to B. Okay, if A is a subset of B means if every element of set A is an element of set B, and also B is a subset of A means every element of set B is also an element of set A, then this implies that A and B are the equal sets. This is about the equality of sets. Okay, next one. Now we say that proper subset. Okay, C. If now next one, proper subset. Proper subset. Proper subset. See here, if A is a subset of B, if A is a subset of B, which means that every element of A is an element of B. Okay, but A is not equal to B. A is a subset of B, but A is not equal to B, which means that B is not a subset of A, which actually means that every element of A is an element of B, and B contains at least one element more than the elements of the set A. Then obviously we say that A is a proper subset of B. Okay, then we say that A is a proper subset of B, and we write this as A proper subset of B is written as such, A proper subset of B. Okay, this is the notation to denote A proper subset of B. So this is about the proper subset. Next one is about the symbols that we use to indicate a set. We know that sets can be represented in two ways. The first way of representation of a set is the roster method, or also called as a method of listing. Okay, so representation of sets. Representation of a set. So there are two types of representation of a set. The first one is the listing of method, or method of listing, or the roster method, in which the elements of a set is represented by writing each and every element of that set enclosed within curly braces, such as A is the set which comprises of elements A, E, I, O, U. We'll consider the second example also. Suppose B is the set which consists of members 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. Like such, sets can be written in this way. If they are written in this way, this is the listing method or the roster method of representation of a set. Now the second method of representation of set is the set builder method. Okay, in the set builder method, sets are written or expressed by mentioning the common property which the elements of the set have in them. For example, suppose we have the set A, then the set A can also be expressed as set A is equal to, it is a set of all elements X such that X has the property. X has the property. If each and every element of the set A has some common property, then the set can also be expressed by mentioning that common property, and this type of representation is called as the set builder method. As can be seen from the above examples, if A is the set that consists of elements A, E, I, O, U, then we can say that A is the set of all X such that X is a vowel. Okay, X is a vowel. As we know that A, E, I, O, U, these are the only 5 vowels in the English alphabets. Therefore, if A is equal to the set A, E, I, O, U, then the same set can be written in the set builder method as A is equal to, it is a set of all X such that X is a vowel. In this way, the set can be written. The next one, above set B, which is the set which consists of the elements 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. If you observe this set, then this is the set of all the prime integers. Okay, it is a set of all the prime numbers which are less than 12. So the set B can be expressed in the set builder method as, it is a set of all X such that X is a prime. X is a prime, and X is less than 12. So if we consider all the prime numbers which are less than 12, then that set will be obviously the set B, which consists of the elements 2, 3, 5, 7 and 11. So likewise we have the two types of representation of a set. Now after discussing the two types of representation of set, we will move to the next one as the operations on the sets. Operations on a set. So three main type of operations we are going to study on a set. The first one is the union of sets. Okay, so union. So if A and B are the two sets, then their union is denoted by the A union B. This is the notation that we use to denote the union of two sets. And this set A union B comprises of all the elements X which belongs to either A or belong to B, or they belong to both A and B. X belongs to A or X belongs to B, or both. Okay, so if we consider a set which comprises of all the elements of A and all the elements of B, obviously without repetition, then that set is called as the A union B, and that we denote by the notation A union B. This is the definition of the union. It is to be carefully understood here in the mathematics that in mathematics we mean the meaning of the OR. Okay, in mathematics OR means union, and OR means either first or second or both. This is very important here. OR means either first or second or both. Okay, this is the meaning of OR in mathematics. Next one is the intersection. Next operation is of the intersection. So how the intersection is defined? See here, if A and B are the two sets, then the set which comprises of only those elements those are common in both A and B is called as the intersection of A and B, and that we denote by the notation A intersection B. So A intersection B is a set which consists of the elements X such that X belongs to A and X belongs to B. Means if X is present in both A and B at the same time, which actually means that if X is an element which is common in A and B, then the set of all such common elements of the sets A and B is called the intersection of A and B, and then that we denote by the notation A intersection B. Okay, union and intersection. Next one is the difference. Difference of sets. Okay, how the difference is defined? So if A and B are the two sets, then the difference set A minus B is the set which consists of all the elements X such that X is in A, means X belongs to A, and X is not in B. Okay, X is not in B, which means that to find the A minus B, simply write all the elements of the set A, and from those elements ignore those elements which are common with the set B. Ignore means take out those elements which are common with the set B. Then the remaining set is obviously the difference set A minus B. So like such we have the union, intersection and difference of two sets. So after defining these operations union, intersection and difference of sets, the next one is we'll see what is meant by the if then and empty set. Okay, so next one is the empty set. So many times we require a set which is without any element in it, and obviously that set is called as an empty set. So empty set is a set without any element. A set which do not have any element in it is called as an empty set. And obviously that empty set we denote by the notation, and that notation is this Greek letter phi. This notation phi is reserved to denote the empty set. So it is clear from the definitions of union and intersection that A union phi is always equal to A. Okay, A union phi equal to A, whereas A intersection phi is equal to phi, where A is any set. If A is any set, then union of A with the empty set phi is equal to A, and intersection of A with empty set phi is equal to phi. These are the properties of the empty set. So this is the empty set. The empty set can also be denoted by the notation. The other notation to denote the empty set is the empty parenthesis. So empty set is denoted by the empty parenthesis, or it is also denoted by the Greek letter phi. So next one, after denoting this empty set, next we'll study the meaning of the if-then phrase. In mathematics, in many statements, we use this phrase. The phrase is the if-then. If-then. This if-then phrase is also denoted by the symbol, and that symbol is implies. This symbol we frequently use to denote the if-then. For example, if P, then Q. Here obviously P and Q are some statements. Okay, if P, then Q is written in symbols as P implies Q. And what is meaning of this? That we know from the mathematical logic, right from the 11th standard. If P then Q, that is P implies Q, means whenever P is Q, whenever P is true, then Q is also true. But if P is false, then Q may or may not be true. Okay, so this means that if P is true, if P then Q, this means that if P is true, then Q is also true. Q is also true. But if P is false, then Q may be true, or Q may be false. This is the meaning of implies or if then. Okay, so this is the one example we'll consider of this implies. For example, if we can say that if x is greater than 0, then x square is greater than 0. If x is greater than 0, then x square is greater than 0. This is one of the example of if then. Here in this case, x greater than 0 can be considered as the statement P, and x square greater than 0 can be considered as the statement Q. So this is P implies Q. The same thing can be written in the symbols as x greater than 0 implies x square greater than 0. Okay, so likewise this implication symbol can be used. After the implication, that is the implies, P implies Q. Next one, two more statements we are going to study, that is the contrapositive and converse. Next one is the contrapositive. Okay, so contrapositive of P implies Q. Contrapositive of P implies Q is, what is contrapositive of P implies Q? So it is not P, not Q, or the negation Q implies not P. Not P means negation P. So which means that if P implies Q is a statement, then its contrapositive is not Q implies not P. So this is the contrapositive, and from the mathematical logic we know that these two are equivalent. logically equivalent, which means that P implies Q, this statement, and the other statement is negation Q implies negation P. So these two statements are logically equivalent that we have studied in the 11th standard. Okay, contrapositive. Next one, after the contrapositive is the converse of a implication or conditional statement. Conditional statement is also called as a implication or implies. Next one is the converse of the implication or conditional statement. So see here, converse of P implies Q means if P implies Q is a statement, then its converse is, okay, converse of P implies Q is the statement Q implies P. Converse of P implies Q is the statement Q implies P. So, and for example, if the statement P implies Q is means converse of, we'll consider one example here, converse of x greater than 0 implies x square greater than 0 is, okay, converse of this statement is x square greater than 0 implies x greater than 0. This is the converse of implication. Okay, so I've seen contrapositive as well as converse of a conditional statement or the conditional statement or the implication statement. So this one. Next one we'll see the negation of a statement. So how the negation can be defined? See here, if P is a statement, then its a negation is denoted by, okay, negation of P is the statement not P. If P is any statement, then its negation is not P, and which is also denoted by sometimes in the symbols as negation P, negation of P or not P. Okay, for example, if we have said that, example of this, x is a real number. Suppose this is our statement P, that x is a real number, then its negation is, if this is the statement P, then negation of P will be the statement x is not a real number. X is not a real number. Likewise, we can form negation of a statement. Okay, but we are interested in two more important negations that we frequently use. Which are two important negations? See here, many times in the statements of results, we deal with statements of the form, of which form? For every x belongs to A. Okay, see here, if the statement is for every x belongs to A, for every x belongs to A, suppose statement P is true, statement P is true, okay, like such if we have, then obviously negation of this will be then negation of this. Negation of this is negation of what? Negation of this. For every x belongs to A, statement P is true. If this is a statement if we have, then the negation of this above statement will be, it will be for at least one x, for at least one x belongs to A, statement for at least one x belongs to A, statement P is not true. Statement P is not true means it is false, or we can say that it does not hold. Okay, so this is we can say the negation of the above statement. Similarly, we also deal with one more type of negation many times, and that second example also we'll deal with. The second is that for at least one, if the statement is for at least one x belongs to B, for at least one x belongs to B statement, suppose the statement is Q, statement Q holds, statement Q holds, obviously then its negation is, then its negation is, its negation will be for every x belongs to B, for every x belongs to B, statement Q does not hold, okay. So like such we have the negation of statements, which is also of importance, okay. So today we'll stop here, and in the next class we'll deal with some rules of set theory, as well as we'll study the collection of sets, means the arbitrary union and intersection of sets, and Cartesian product, and then functions. So till then we'll stop here. Thank you.